Syracuse, a fisherman, is out on his boat when he finds a young woman caught in his net. She is barely dressed but alive, so he helps her breathe again. She calls herself Ondine and refuses to go to the hospital, not wanting anyone to see her. Syracuse hides her in an old caravan that once belonged to his late mother, in a quiet harbor. Because of this, he is late picking up his daughter Annie, who uses a wheelchair and lives with his ex-wife Maura. During Annie's dialysis, Syracuse tells her a story about a fisherman who catches a woman from the sea. Annie thinks the woman could be a magical selkie. Annie gets a new power wheelchair from the CRC. When she arrives home, Maura's boyfriend Alex is there. Maura is angry at Syracuse for missing a doctor's visit, where they got news about a possible kidney donor for Annie. The next morning, Syracuse sees Ondine washing clothes in a stream while singing in a language he doesn't understand. She joins him on his boat, but at first he catches nothing. When Ondine starts singing, his lobster pots suddenly fill up. She still refuses to be seen, so she doesn't go with him to sell the lobsters. Instead, he buys a dress and lies to the store clerk, saying it's for Annie when she grows up. When Syracuse picks up Annie from school, he continues the story, telling her the woman sings to help him catch fish. Annie says the language must be selk, the language of selkies. Curious about the story, Annie secretly follows Syracuse to the caravan. When he asks Ondine how long she will stay, she says it's up to him. He happily says forever, like a fairy tale. Annie watches them without being seen. Back home, Annie studies library books about seals and selkies. Alex tells her that selkies come from Scotland, but he doesn't think Ondine is one. Syracuse often confesses to a local priest because there are no AA meetings in town. He tells the priest about his nightmares where Alex dies and he ends up back with Maura, who still drinks. Then he confesses that he pulled a woman from the sea and kept her. The priest reminds him that he cannot tell anyone. Ondine, alone in the caravan, tidies up and tries on her new clothes, stretching her leggings over her hand as if making it look webbed. The next day, Annie sees Ondine swimming and approaches her. They talk about selkies and Ondine plays along. Annie kisses her goodbye before going home. Meanwhile, Syracuse goes to the library to find books about selkies but discovers that Annie borrowed them all. Later, Annie meets some neighborhood kids with bikes. She lets one of them try her power chair, but it shorts out in the water. The kids make fun of her and leave, forcing her to push it home alone. She finds Alex drinking and asks him about selkies again. He tells her they come from the Outer Hebrides but says Ondine doesn't speak like one. Syracuse takes Ondine fishing again. A patrol boat passes and Ondine hides. When she sings, he pulls up a huge catch of salmon that didn't come from regular fishing. The patrol boat returns to check for illegal nets and finds Ondine hidden among them. Syracuse is relieved that the guards don't think she's imaginary. They go to town to sell the fish, where people stare at Ondine, including a dark-haired man who seems to be looking for her. Syracuse buys her new clothes, and Annie helps her choose outfits while people watch through the store window. Later, Syracuse wants to take Annie to the regatta, but Maura says she already left. Instead, Annie visits Ondine and finds the caravan cleaned. Since Annie can't swim, Ondine plays with her in shallow water and finds something buried, which Annie believes is Ondine's seal coat. They bury it in the greenhouse. Annie hopes Ondine will stay for 7 years unless a selkie husband comes for her. As they sail to town, Ondine warns Annie that she isn't a selkie and can't grant wishes. Upset, Annie fakes brake failure and rolls off the pier to test if Ondine can breathe underwater. Ondine jumps in to save her. They take Annie back to Maura and Alex, who tell her that a man has been asking about Ondine. That night, Annie has a nightmare about the selkie husband coming. Syracuse tells Ondine that people call him Circus the Clown, because he was an alcoholic like Maura. He quit drinking for Annie, but Maura still got custody. In confession, Syracuse tells the priest he spent the night with Ondine and fears her good luck because he isn't used to hope. Outside, the unknown man asks about Ondine, but Syracuse ignores him. He brings Annie home, but Maura and Alex are at the pub, so she is locked out. She asks to stay with them instead. Syracuse returns to find the caravan ransacked and Ondine hiding. He wants her to stay and asks her to wish the man away, but Ondine only wishes for Annie not to be sick. Meanwhile, the dark-haired man drives angrily through town, causing Maura, who is drunk driving, to crash. Alex is thrown through the windshield and dies. At the hospital, Syracuse and Ondine learn that Annie will get an immediate kidney transplant because Alex was an organ donor. The dark-haired man is also at the hospital and speaks with Ondine in their language, revealing that they both don't belong there. After Alex's funeral, Syracuse and Maura get drunk. Maura tells him to get rid of Ondine, who is now hiding on his boat. Drunk and emotional, Syracuse leaves Ondine on Roancarg Lighthouse Island, thinking she will haunt him forever. As the sun sets, driftwood behind her makes it look like she has a seal's tail before she jumps into the sea. The next morning, the priest wakes Syracuse and he takes Annie home from the hospital. She comforts him, saying Ondine will return because she left something behind. Later, Syracuse hears a song on TV by Sigur Rós and realizes it's the same song Ondine sang. He rushes to Seal Rock and demands the truth. Ondine first says she is a sea creature who buried her coat to stay with the family she loves. Then she confesses that she is actually a Romanian drug mule. Her boss, Vladik, was escaping the coast guards when she swam away with a backpack of heroin. She drifted in the sea until Syracuse rescued her. As they return, Vladik and another gunman ambush them, looking for the hidden drugs. They all go to the greenhouse to dig up the seal coat, but it's gone. Annie moved it. Ondine promises to stay with her, and Annie reveals she hid the bundle in a lobster pot. When they pull it up, Annie reminds Ondine that Vladik isn't a selkie. Ondine quickly pulls the rope under Vladik's feet, making him fall overboard. He drowns trying to retrieve the bag after Annie pushes the pot back into the water. Syracuse disarms the other man and throws him into the sea, where he is later arrested. Ondine is also taken in by the police and faces deportation. Later, Annie is seen in the confessional speaking to the priest who is about to marry Syracuse and Ondine. The story ends like a fairy tale. Selkies often find unexpected happiness with a landsman. Subscribe to our channel. It will motivate us to bring more movie recaps for you.